Got a big one this week. 106th edition of the Backyard Brawl in Morgantown this year. Under the lights, 7:30 kick. ABC national TV audience is going to be watching Sean McDonough and team. All the Pitt Panthers come into town. Big game, at least last I saw. I think Pitt is a slight favorite. And big game in Neil Brown's tenure, which we'll talk about later tonight, and what this means for West Virginia's season this year. And as we've done with every game so far this season, we'll do this year for all the West Virginia games. Let's go through some of our keys to the game. The first one for me is kind of an obvious one, and I think is some low-hanging fruit, but it's really the weak spot of this year's team so far, which I think has been the pass defense. Struggled, I wouldn't say mightily, but struggled somewhat against Penn State on the road. Really good team, which would be somewhat expected. But then last week, which was pretty concerning, you give up 6 plays and more than 15 yards in the air to Duquesne. And albeit they had an experienced quarterback, but the receivers in several plays just had way too much room to run. Neil Brown and the coaching staff are clearly frustrated about it. And so the question is, what can they do schematically to make some changes? Neil said this week that they've done some of that in practice. They didn't show it in the Duquesne game because they didn't want to put it on film for Pitt and for other Power 5 opponents coming up. But the question is that going to be enough? Do they have a personnel problem? How is West Virginia going to look as on Saturday night in the pass game? Because they need to make improvement there.
Yeah, I've not heard us express so much concern, and that's the part that's most concerning to me is for us to come out in press conferences and call those players out, not specifically by name, but as a group collectively. I start to get concerned, and we've all watched it over the past 2 weeks. So it can go
one of two ways. It can go one of two ways. It can galvanize the players. Hopefully they realize they didn't play well against Duquesne, I assume.
Right.
So hopefully they can come out and play better. But the question is, you also don't want to end up throwing. And I didn't think the coaching staff went there this week, frankly. I thought they were just being honest. And as Jordan Leslie in his press conference said, this is the same thing I've told the players individually and as a group. There are going to be some demotions. There are going to be some promotions. And this is just the fact. Some of you are not.
You can watch it on film.
Yeah, you can watch it on film. And so the players probably know. So I'm hoping that it helps. But to my question, do they have the personnel? If you're not able, if it's just an ability thing, if it's just a competence thing in the secondary, then there may not be something you can do to help it. And they're kind of thin there, as they were last year. I think they are improved over last year, but
that's the concern.
That's the concern.
That's the concern.
Totally agree. Moving to my second key, I think it's just on the opposite side of throwing the football from West Virginia's perspective. How's West Virginia able to throw the ball? They kind of opened it up a little bit after the weather delay against Duquesne last week. Garrett Green looked much better throwing the ball downfield. The deep ball was great, particularly much some better. Of those deep balls to Hudson Clement. And so I think the thing is, can West Virginia carry that momentum into this Pitt game? And can Garrett Green, who Neil Brown has said is a ball of energy and tends to start the game a little bit, hyped up and maybe too hyped up, because the first quarter is by far his worst quarter in terms of completion percentage in a game so far this year. Can he calm his nerves in what will be an absolutely insane atmosphere at Mountaineer Field at 7:30 on Saturday and start the game off on the right foot? And if he can, if West Virginia's pass game can get going early, it'll bode well for the rest of the game.
And I'll take the insane atmosphere as one of my keys to the game. How do the Pitt Panthers come in to Morgantown, and how do they react in a hostile atmosphere? So last year when we went to Pittsburgh, you're looking at what we'll say 60-40 fan bases. This is going to be a lot different type of atmosphere. So students on top of you. It's going to be liquid courage by 7:30 for a primetime game. We're going to be ready. So how do they react in an away atmosphere for the first time this season? And then final point, I would say the West Virginia rushing attack. So this area is so important simply for the fact that you have you have the ability to play keep away. So can you limit the opportunities that Pitt has to attack your secondary? And can you keep control of the football and almost play keep away? We know that's Neil Brown's style. We've seen that in past games where he's had upsets. This is like a game that I've got that feeling. And as I've looked at the line, I've seen it shift. It goes Pitt, and then it's starting to come back. And it's now West Virginia's the favorite by 1.5. So how do the Mountaineers run the football? I think that's going to be an important factor on a Saturday night kickoff in Morgantown. The weather's going to be absolutely perfect, an electric atmosphere, and I can't wait to be there.
Can't wait. Let's go Mountaineers.
Let's go Mountaineers.